Dear Sugar, I'm in my early 20s. I've been in a serious relationship with the same guy for 6 years, on and off, the off portion taking place when I was younger. I have been very distracted and have been second-guessing the relationship for a while now, but I can't come to grips with losing this person that seems to be right for me permanently. And of course, I don't want to break his heart. Then again, I don't want to settle and have regrets later in life. I feel like we want different things out of life, and we have different interests, but I just can't decide. I've talked to him about my feelings, but to no avail. We went on a little break, but breaks never work. My biggest fear is being alone and never finding anyone that measures up. It doesn't help that my closest friends are settling down with their boyfriends and talking about marriage. Please help, Sugar. Sincerely, Scared and Confused. Dear Scared and Confused, I lived in London when I was 20. I was technically homeless and desperately broke, but I didn't have the papers an American needs to get a job in London, so I spent most of my time walking the streets, searching for coins that people had dropped. One day, a man in a business suit approached and asked me if I wanted an under-the-table job 3 days a week at a major accounting firm that has since collapsed due to corruption. Sure, I said. And this is how I became Coffee Girl 123. Coffee Girl was my actual job title. The 123 was tacked on to communicate the fact that I was responsible for providing fresh and hot coffee and tea to all the accountants and secretaries who worked on the first 3 floors of the building. It was a harder job than you might think. Coffee Girl, men would call as I passed them with my tray, often snapping their fingers to draw my attention their way. I wore a black skirt over white tights and a black vest over a white shirt, and I was almost always out of breath. Banned from the elevator, I had to race up and down steps in a stairwell that ran along the back of the building to get from one floor to the next. That stairwell was my sanctuary, the only place where nobody snapped their fingers and called me Coffee Girl. During my breaks, I walked down to the first floor and went outside and sat on a patch of concrete that edged the building that housed the major accounting firm that has since collapsed due to corruption. One day while I was sitting there, an old woman came along and asked me where in America I was from, and I told her. And she said that years before, she'd visited the place in America where I'm from, and we had a nice conversation. And each day after that, she came along during the time when I was sitting on the patch of concrete, and we talked. She wasn't the only person who came to talk to me. I was in love with someone at the time. In fact, I was married to that someone. And I was in way over my head. At night, after I made love to this man, I would lie beside him and cry because I knew that I loved him and that I couldn't bear to stay with him because I wasn't ready to love only one person yet. And I knew that if I left him, I would die of a broken heart and I would kill him of a broken heart too. And it would be over for me when it came to love, because there would never be another person who I'd love as much as I loved him, or who loved me as much as he loved me, or who was as sweet and sexy and cool and compassionate and good through and through. So I stayed. We looked for coins on the streets of London together. And sometimes he would come and visit me at the major accounting firm that has since collapsed due to corruption while I was on my breaks. One day he came while the old woman was there. My husband and the old woman had never come at the same time, but I had told him about her, detailing the conversations I'd had with her, and I had told her about him too. "Is this your husband?" the old woman exclaimed with jubilant recognition when he walked up. And she shook his hand with both of her hands, and they chatted for a few minutes, and then she left. The man I loved was silent for a good while, giving the old woman time to walk away. And then he looked at me and said with some astonishment, "She has a bundle on her head." "She has a bundle on her head?" I said. "She has a bundle on her head," he said back. And then we laughed and laughed and laughed so hard it might to this day still be the time I laughed the hardest. He was right. He was right. That old woman, all that time, all through the conversations we'd had as I sat on the concrete patch, had had an enormous bundle on her head.